The air in the SpaceX Starship facility in Hawthorne was thick with the scent of burnt coffee and ozone, a familiar perfume of relentless ambition. Outside, the Southern California sky was a blanket of hazy darkness, but inside, under the harsh fluorescent lights, it was an eternal, pressurized day. Elon Musk stood before the towering assembly of a starship fin, its metallic skin reflecting his own exhausted expression back at him. He hadn't slept in what felt like 2 days, his mind a frantic storm of telemetry data, thermal dynamics, and launch window calculations. A minor delay in a valve pressure test had sent a ripple of anxiety through the team. He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair, the weight of his terrestrial and extraterrestrial ventures pressing down on him. Mars felt so close, a tangible dream he could almost touch, yet the path was paved with a million frustratingly small obstacles. He needed something to shift the narrative, not just for the public, but for himself. He needed a jolt of pure, unadulterated creativity to cut through the sterile fog of engineering. The mission wasn't just about rockets. It was about capturing the imagination of humanity, making the impossible feel inevitable and, more importantly, cool. Pacing back and forth along the concrete floor, his worn leather shoes scuffing the painted yellow safety lines, Elon pulled out his phone. He scrolled aimlessly through social media, a digital distraction from the physical reality of the delayed test. His thumb paused on a video, Snoop Dogg, in his studio, effortlessly freestyling, over a smooth G-funk beat. The contrast was jarring yet magnetic. Snoop's world of cool, rhythmic confidence was a universe away from Elon's high-stakes world of thrust-to-weight ratios and orbital mechanics. A thought, initially absurd and fleeting, sparked in the tired synapses of his brain. It was a ridiculous, illogical, and utterly captivating idea. What if these two worlds collided? What if the laid-back king of West Coast hip-hop became the voice for the Red Planet? The idea was so preposterous it made him smile for the first time all night. It was a leap of faith not measured in astronomical units, but in pure, unadulterated audacity. He saw it clearly, a beat that could shake the earth, with lyrics that could reach for the stars. He knew it couldn't be a corporate, sterile request filtered through layers of agents and publicists. That would kill the soul of it instantly. If this was going to happen, it had to be a direct appeal, a personal mission. He pictured the conversation, the likely confusion, the high probability of being laughed out of the room. Yet, the more he thought about it, the more the idea solidified from a joke into a genuine strategy. Snoop wasn't just a rapper. He was a cultural icon, an ambassador of cool who had transcended genre and generation. With a newfound surge of energy that caffeine alone couldn't provide, Elon strode over to his desk, pushing aside schematics and printouts. He opened a blank document on his screen, the cursor blinking expectantly. He wasn't a songwriter, a poet, or a musician. He was an engineer, a CEO, a man obsessed with the physics of the possible. But for this to work, he had to provide more than just an idea. He had to provide a spark. He began to type, not with the precision of a coder, but with the raw enthusiasm of a fan. The words started as a trickle, then a flow. He wrote about the rusty dust of the Martian landscape, the two moons Phobos and Deimos hanging in the thin sky, the rumble of a starship landing. He tried to infuse the technical marvel with a sense of adventure and rebellion, a feeling he knew Snoop understood better than anyone. It was a rap, clunky and filled with engineering jargon, but it was a start. It was a message in a bottle, aimed directly at the heart of Inglewood. He looked at the rudimentary lyrics he'd drafted. They were nerdy, overly specific, and probably had zero flow. He imagined Snoop's reaction, a mix of bewilderment and amusement. This was the ultimate cold call. Failure was the most likely outcome. But in a life dedicated to achieving the improbable, from electric cars to reusable rockets, the fear of failure was just another data point, another variable to be solved. This was no different. He found a direct contact for Snoop's management, a long shot he'd acquired through a mutual acquaintance at a tech conference years ago. He drafted a short, direct email, attaching his clumsy lyrical attempt. The subject line was simple: Mars and music. He knew it was a gamble. The message could be deleted, ignored, or screenshotted and ridiculed across the internet as the bizarre ramblings of a tired billionaire. He reread the email one last time. It was concise, honest, and completely out of left field. He explained his vision: to make the dream of space exploration accessible and exciting to everyone, not just the scientific community. He posited that a song could be more powerful than a press release, a beat more inspiring than a blueprint. It was a plea for a collaboration that seemed, on its surface, to make no sense at all. This was his obstacle, bridging the immense cultural and professional chasm between himself and Snoop Dogg. It wasn't about technology or funding. It was about convincing a master of his craft to trust the vision of an outsider. He knew that the support of a cultural giant like Snoop could fundamentally alter the public perception of space travel, turning it from a niche scientific pursuit into a shared human dream. His growth would depend on his ability to be vulnerable and persuasive. With a deep breath, fighting the internal voice of pragmatic skepticism, Elon Musk hit send. The email vanished into the digital ether, a signal boost from Hawthorne aimed at a recording studio miles away, but worlds apart. As the first hints of dawn began to soften the Los Angeles skyline, he felt a strange sense of calm. The valve test could wait. He had just launched a different kind of mission. The heart of Snoop Dogg's empire wasn't a corporate high-rise, but a sprawling, comfortable recording studio in Inglewood, affectionately known as the Mothership. The air inside was a mix of expensive cannabis, old vinyl, and creative energy. Sunlight struggled to cut through the tinted windows, leaving the rooms in a perpetual state of cool, moody twilight. Snoop lounged on a plush green velvet couch, a controller in his hand, deep into a game of Madden on a massive screen. The low, thumping bass of an unfinished track vibrated through the floorboards, a constant comforting heartbeat. His longtime manager, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Shantae, walked in, holding a tablet with a look of utter confusion on her face. "Calvin, you are not going to believe this," she said, using his birth name, a signal that this was serious business. "I just got the weirdest email of my entire career. I almost deleted it as spam, but it's from Elon Musk's official channel." Snoop didn't look away from the screen, executing a perfect play-action pass. "Elon? The car dude? What do you want? A custom Cybertruck with a studio in the back?" he asked, a smile playing on his lips. Shantae shook her head, pulling up the email. "It's a song proposal," she said, her voice laced with disbelief. "He sent lyrics. He wants to collaborate with you on a rap track about going to Mars." That finally got Snoop's attention. He paused the game and sat up, taking the tablet from her. He squinted at the screen, a slow grin spreading across his face as he read the words. "Red rocks and dust, solar-powered. Trust Starship thrusters, in the cosmos we thrust," he read aloud, before letting out a hearty laugh that filled the room. His initial reaction was pure amusement. He thought it was a prank, or perhaps some bizarre, out-of-touch marketing scheme. "This man is crazier than a sack of cats," Snoop chuckled, handing the tablet back. "Tell him thanks, but no thanks, nephew. I'm busy making music for planet Earth." He saw this as a potential distraction, a gimmick that could easily backfire and make him look like a sellout. His brand was built on authenticity, on staying true to his roots, and a rap co-signed by a tech billionaire felt like the opposite of that. Shantae, however, was more pragmatic. "Hold on, Cal. Don't dismiss it so fast. It's Elon Musk. The man has over 100 million followers. The publicity alone would be insane." Snoop leaned back, stroking his chin in thought. She had a point. He was never one to shy away from a smart business move or an unexpected collaboration. He'd worked with everyone from country singers to pop stars. But this felt different. It felt nerdy, and not in a cool way. The obstacle was clear. Snoop's own skepticism and his protective instinct over his artistic integrity. He couldn't see the vision. Mars, rockets, engineering jargon. It was all so foreign to his world of beats, rhymes, and life. He built his career on being the epitome of cool, and he feared this project would dilute his legacy. He needed to be convinced that this wasn't just a publicity stunt, but a project with real substance and soul. His entire career was a testament to his growth, but this was a new kind of challenge. Just as he was about to give a final no, his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. He usually ignored them, but something told him to answer. "Yo," he said, his voice low. The voice on the other end was hesitant, slightly high-pitched, and unmistakably familiar from countless interviews and press conferences. "Is this Snoop Dogg? This is Elon Musk." Snoop sat bolt upright, his eyes wide. He muted the phone and looked at Shante, who was already staring at him in shock. The man didn't wait for an answer. Elon's voice came through the speaker, a rapid-fire torrent of words. He explained that he knew the email was a long shot and that the lyrics were probably terrible. He wasn't calling to push the song but to explain the why. He spoke of his childhood in South Africa, of dreaming of other worlds as a way to escape a difficult reality. He talked about space not as a rich man's hobby, but as a universal dream that belonged to everyone, from the kids in Compton to the engineers in Hawthorne. The raw, unfiltered passion in Elon's voice caught Snoop off guard. This wasn't the calculated pitch of a CEO. It was the rambling, heartfelt plea of a true believer. He sounded less like a billionaire and more like a sci-fi geek who had somehow stumbled into a position of immense power. Snoop found himself listening, not to the words, but to the emotion behind them. He heard the exhaustion, the stress, and the desperate hope that this crazy idea could work. He unmuted the phone. "Hold on, homie. You for real about this?" Snoop asked, his tone shifting from dismissive to intrigued. "You really think Snoop Dogg should be the one to rap about your spaceships?" There was a pause on the other end, and then Elon said, "I don't think it should be you. From a first principles standpoint of cultural impact, it has to be you. You're a master of communication. I need your help to communicate this." The directness and unexpected humility of the statement resonated with Snoop. He wasn't being asked to endorse a product. He was being asked to be a translator, a bridge between two vastly different worlds. He looked around his studio, at the gold records on the wall, symbols of a career built on taking risks and breaking rules. This was, without a doubt, the biggest risk and the strangest rule to break he had ever encountered. "All right, Rocket Man," Snoop said, a slow smile returning to his face. "You got my attention. Bring your nerdy self down to the mothership tomorrow. Let me see what you got, but I ain't promising nothing." He hung up the phone, the silence in the room now filled with a palpable sense of possibility. Shante just stared at him, a mix of terror and excitement in her eyes. The king of Inglewood was about to hold court with the man who wanted to colonize Mars. The next afternoon, a matte black Tesla Cybertruck, looking like a vehicle teleported from a dystopian future, pulled up quietly outside Snoop's studio. The yacht's contrast with the sun-drenched, palm-tree-lined Inglewood street was stark. When Elon Musk stepped out, dressed in a black SpaceX t-shirt and jeans, he looked less like a titan of industry and more like a fan waiting for an autograph. He clutched a tablet to his chest like a shield, his expression a mixture of nervous energy and steely determination. The warm California air felt charged with an awkward anticipation. He was led into the inner sanctum of the studio. The dim lighting, the thick haze of smoke in the air, and the deep, vibrating bass were a world away from the sterile clean rooms of SpaceX. Snoop Dogg was exactly where you'd expect him to be, enthroned on his green velvet couch, flanked by a few members of his crew. He gestured for Elon to take a seat, his movements slow and deliberate, watching the tech mogul with an unreadable expression. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Elon, trying to break the ice, started talking immediately, his words spilling out in a nervous rush. He talked about the potential for methane-powered engines, the challenges of creating a self-sustaining habitat, and the orbital mechanics of a Earth-Mars transfer. He was in his comfort zone of data and facts. Snoop listened patiently, nodding occasionally, before finally holding up a hand to stop the torrent of information. "Easy there, nephew. You're blowing my high with all this science," he said, his voice a low, calm rumble. "Forget the rockets for a minute," Snoop continued, leaning forward. "Tell me about the feeling. When you look up at the sky, what do you see?" The question was simple but profound. It cut through all the technical jargon and aimed for the human core of the mission. It was an obstacle for Elon, who was used to communicating in numbers and projections. He had to translate his logical passion into an emotional one. This was the moment that would make or break the entire endeavor. Elon paused, genuinely thrown by the question. He looked away from Snoop and stared at a poster on the wall, as if searching for the answer in its psychedelic patterns. "I see. An escape," he said, his voice softer now, stripped of its usual certainty. "And a second chance. A way to ensure that all the things we love about humanity, the art, the music, the dumb jokes, the sense of discovery, don't just end here if we mess this planet up." It was the most vulnerable and honest thing he had said. That was the key. Snoop Dogg nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He finally saw the man behind the myth, the dreamer behind the billionaire. "Aight," he said. "Now that's a vibe. That's a lyric." He picked up a notepad and a pen. "Forget the words you wrote. They sound like a user manual. Let's start with that feeling. The second chance vibe. The escape flow." He was taking control, shifting the project from Elon's world to his. He asked Elon to explain the entire journey to Mars, but in the simplest terms possible. "Pretend I'm a 5-year-old, Snoop instructed. And so, Elon did. He described the violent shake of the launch, the breathtaking view of the blue marble receding, the 6 months of silent, star-filled travel, and the terrifying, fiery descent to a new world. He used simple analogies, his hands shaping the imaginary spacecraft in the air. He was no longer a CEO, he was a storyteller. Snoop listened intently, his head bobbing slightly as if he could already hear a beat forming. He jotted down phrases and words. Blue marble, silent travel, fiery drop. He was translating Elon's engineering dream into poetic snippets. "See, this is the good stuff," Snoop said, tapping his pen on the pad. "This is the story people want to hear. Not about the Karman line, but about leaving home and finding a new one." He was teaching Elon that to connect with people, you had to speak to their hearts, not their heads. The support was transformative. Elon, who was used to leading every project, had to learn to follow, to trust another person's expertise completely. His personal growth in that moment was about relinquishing control and embracing a different kind of genius. He saw Snoop not just as a musician, but as a master communicator, an artist who could take a complex idea and distill it into its purest emotional form. The collaboration was finally becoming real. "Okay, I got a beat in my head," Snoop announced, standing up and heading towards the mixing board. "It's gotta be cosmic, a little G-funk, a little futuristic." He directed his sound engineer, who began pulling up samples and crafting a drum pattern. A deep, hypnotic bass line started to fill the room, and for the first time, a genuine, unforced smile spread across Elon's face. He could hear it. He could feel the dream being turned into a sound. The two men, once separated by an immeasurable cultural gap, were now hunched over the same mixing board, building something new together. Snoop would hum a melody, and Elon would offer a technical term, which Snoop would then twist into a clever rhythmic rhyme. "Cybertruck cruisin' on the red sand," Snoop freestyled quietly. "Got the whole solar system in the palm of my hand." It was the perfect fusion of their two worlds. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Inglewood, the foundation of a song had been built. It was more than just a track. It was a bridge. A bridge between science and art, between Hawthorne and Inglewood, between a man who builds rockets and a man who builds anthems. They had found their cosmic rhythm, a shared beat that proved that even the most unlikely partnerships could create something truly universal. An incredible turn of events, right? From a skeptical refusal to a creative breakthrough in the studio. What do you think of their creative process? Is this the collaboration you ever expected to see? Let us know in the comments below what you would have done in Snoop's shoes. And hey, if you're enjoying this story as much as we are, take a second to hit that like how you button. It really helps the channel. Now, back to the studio. The next few weeks blurred into a series of long days and even longer nights at the mothership. The studio became a surreal nexus point, a place where the scent of astronaut-grade coffee mingled with Snoop's signature haze. Elon, much to the surprise of his own executive team, cleared a significant portion of his schedule. He'd arrive in the late afternoon, fresh from a SpaceX meeting, his mind still buzzing with orbital mechanics, and dive headfirst into the world of 808s and ad-libs. The initial awkwardness had melted away, replaced by a focused, if sometimes clumsy, creative partnership. The process was a fascinating study in contrasts. Elon would approach a lyric with the precision of an engineer, trying to make it scientifically accurate down to the decimal point. He'd pull up charts on his phone to argue about the exact atmospheric density of Mars, insisting it be reflected in the song. Snoop, in his infinite cool, would listen patiently before gently steering him back towards the emotional core of the track. "Nephew, it ain't a textbook," he'd say with a chuckle. "It's a vibe. We're selling the dream, not the specs." There were moments of genuine creative friction. One evening, they argued for nearly an hour over a single line. Elon wanted a reference to Hohmann transfer orbits, a technically correct term for the most efficient path between planets. Snoop argued that nobody knew what that meant, and it sounded like a German accountant. The obstacle was their fundamentally different languages. For Elon, precision was truth. For Snoop, feeling was truth. The session stalled, the air growing tense for the first time. Snoop's crew watched from the sidelines, unsure how to intervene. It was Snoop who broke the stalemate. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he changed his approach. He took Elon to a smaller room in the back, filled with old records from the 70s. He pulled out a Parliament Funkadelic album, Mothership Connection, and put it on the turntable. As the psychedelic space-themed funk filled the room, Snoop explained, "George Clinton took us to space before you were even born, man. He didn't do it with math. He did it with a groove. That was the breakthrough." Elon finally understood. The goal wasn't to lecture. It was to transport. He had to trust Snoop's artistic instincts. From that point on, a new dynamic emerged. Elon would provide the raw, factual inspiration, the science, the destination, and Snoop would be the alchemist, spinning it into lyrical gold. Hohmann transfer orbit became the slow ride on the Starlight Slide, a line that captured the essence without the jargon. Elon's appreciation for Snoop's genius grew immensely. The late nights were fueled by an eclectic mix of takeout. One night it would be vegan salads delivered for Elon. The next, it would be a mountain of fried chicken and waffles for Snoop and his team. They'd sit around the mixing board, sharing food and stories. Elon talked about the crushing stress of a rocket exploding, and Snoop shared tales of the early days of Death Row Records. They were finding common ground in the shared experience of building something from nothing against incredible odds. The studio itself seemed to transform. On one wall, a massive whiteboard usually reserved for tour dates and album track lists was now covered in Elon's frantic scrawls of rocket diagrams and Martian topography. Next to it were Snoop's lyrical brainstorms, written in his flowing script. It was a visual representation of their minds merging, a chaotic but beautiful tapestry of art and science. The environment was a testament to their unlikely bond. The weather outside mirrored their creative process. One night, a rare California thunderstorm raged, the flashes of lightning illuminating the studio as they worked on a particularly intense, dramatic bridge for the song. The rolling thunder became an accidental part of the beat, a powerful, natural percussion that they decided to sample and weave into the track. It felt like the universe was co-signing their collaboration, adding its own elemental power to their creation. The song was taking shape, becoming something more than either of them could have imagined alone. It had Snoop's signature laid-back, infectious groove, but it was layered with futuristic synths and cosmic sound effects. The lyrics were a masterclass in storytelling, painting a vivid picture of a journey to a new frontier, full of hope, swagger, and a touch of melancholy for the world left behind. It was both a party anthem and a profound meditation on humanity's future. One of the most surprising developments was Elon's own vocal contribution. Snoop, in a moment of inspiration, insisted Elon record some ad-libs. At first, Elon refused, laughing it off as a ridiculous idea. But Snoop was adamant. "The people need to hear the Rocket Man on the track," he insisted. Awkwardly, Elon stepped up to the microphone, and with Snoop coaching him, he delivered a few spoken-word lines about the mission's importance. His slightly robotic, earnest delivery was the perfect, authentic foil to Snoop's smooth flow. The personal growth was palpable. Elon, the rigid engineer, was learning to embrace imperfection and creative chaos. He was visibly more relaxed, smiling and laughing more than his own staff had seen in years. The support of Snoop and his crew had provided him with a much-needed release from his high-pressure world. He was rediscovering the joy of creation, not for the sake of a balance sheet or a mission deadline, but for the art itself. Finally, after 3 weeks of intense, immersive work, it was done. They played the final master back in the main studio, the volume turned up high. The beat dropped, a cosmic boom that shook the room. Snoop's voice glided over it, and then Elon's earnest ad-libs cut through. It was strange, unique, and undeniably catchy. As the final note faded, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then, Snoop turned to Elon, a huge grin on his face. "Nephew," he said, "we didn't just make a song. We made a problem." With the master track, titled Marsified, safely stored on a secure server, the question shifted from creation to distribution. A project this unconventional needed a launch strategy to match. The traditional route, a press release, a scheduled premiere, a slow build-up, felt too corporate, too predictable. It would betray the spontaneous renegade spirit of the song's creation. This was a detail that Elon, a master of generating viral moments, had been pondering since day one. He had a plan, and it was as audacious as the song itself. He proposed they bypass the entire industry machine. No label, no streaming service exclusive, no pre-save campaign. His idea was simple. Drop the song and a simple, self-made video directly onto X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube at a random, unannounced time. He wanted it to appear out of nowhere, a digital meteor striking the cultural landscape. "We control the narrative by having no narrative," he explained to Snoop, his eyes gleaming with disruptive energy. "Maximum chaos, maximum impact." Snoop, who had built his career by both mastering and subverting the music industry, loved the idea. It was punk rock in its purest form. "Let's just break the internet for a minute," he agreed, leaning back with a cloud of smoke. "Let 'em figure it out." They decided to film a simple, lo-fi video right there in the studio, using their phones. They wanted it to feel as authentic and raw as the collaboration itself. A stark contrast to the glossy, high-budget music videos that dominated the charts. However, in a world of constant connectivity, secrets are hard to keep. During one of the final mixing sessions, a junior sound engineer, starstruck and foolish, had taken a 15-second snippet of the song on his phone. He didn't mean for it to get out. He just wanted to show it to his cousin. But from there, it spread like wildfire. Within hours, the low-quality clip of Snoop rapping about red dust over a spacey beat was on TikTok, Reddit, and every corner of the internet. The leak was an unforeseen obstacle, a loss of control that initially infuriated Elon. His carefully planned surprise was ruined. He paced the studio, his mind racing through contingency plans. But Snoop was completely unfazed. He saw it not as a problem, but as an opportunity. "Let 'em buzz," he said calmly. "It's free promotion. All they got is a taste. Now they're starving for the whole meal." Snoop's calm in the face of chaos was a crucial support for the rattled. Elon Snoop was right. The internet went into a speculative frenzy. Was it real? Was it an AI-generated fake? Or Snoop Dogg Mars began trending worldwide. Music bloggers, tech journalists, and pop culture commentators scrambled to make sense of the bizarre clip. The sheer unlikeliness of the collaboration was its greatest marketing tool. The leak had inadvertently created the exact chaotic energy Elon had wanted to orchestrate. The weather seemed to hold its breath. A classic Los Angeles heatwave had settled over the city, the air still and heavy, making everything feel more intense. The sun beat down on the pavement, and inside the air-conditioned studio, the anticipation was just as palpable. They decided to accelerate their plan. Instead of waiting, they would drop the official track and video the very next day, capitalizing on the peak of the public's curiosity. The frantic energy was channeled into last-minute preparations. The video was simple and perfect. It was mostly shots of Snoop and Elon in the studio, laughing, working the mixing board, and vibing to the music. They included footage from Elon's phone of a Starship static fire test, intercut with shots of Snoop cruising in a classic lowrider. The final shot was the two of them, side by side, giving a nod to the camera. It was unpolished, genuine, and utterly compelling. Elon's personal growth was evident in his reaction to the leak. The Elon of a month ago would have been furious, focused on finding the source of the breach. The new, Marsified Elon, influenced by Snoop's laid-back wisdom, was able to adapt and see the opportunity in the chaos. He was learning to surf the wave instead of trying to control the ocean. a valuable lesson for a man who tried to micromanage the universe. As the designated drop time approached, a completely random 2:37 p.m. Pacific time, the two of them sat in the studio, watching the analytics screen on a large monitor. The leaked snippet was still trending, with millions of mentions. News vans were already parked outside the Hawthorne SpaceX facility and Snoop's Inglewood studio, hoping for a comment. The entire digital world was holding its breath, waiting for confirmation. Elon had the file ready to go on his laptop. He looked over at Snoop, who gave him a slow, confident nod. There was no big countdown, no dramatic button. This was the culmination of a ridiculous midnight idea of awkward meetings, creative clashes, and late-night revelations. It was a testament to the power of stepping outside your comfort zone and trusting in an unlikely partner. With a simple click, Elon uploaded the video to YouTube and posted the link on his X feed with a single caption, "Marsified." For a moment, nothing happened. The silence in the studio was deafening, a stark contrast to the digital storm they were about to unleash. Then, the view count on the screen ticked from 0 to 1,000. A second later, it was at 50,000. The rocket was officially launched. The moment the link went live, the internet did not just react, it detonated. The view counter on the YouTube video ceased to be a number and became a blurry, cascading waterfall of digits, spinning upwards at a rate that seemed to defy logic. Within 10 minutes, it had surpassed 1 million views. Within the hour, 10 million. The servers at X headquarters reportedly experienced a traffic surge equivalent to a major global event, all directed at a single post. Marsified was no longer just a song, it was a planetary phenomenon. Inside the Inglewood studio, the atmosphere was electric. The small crew that had witnessed the song's birth was now watching its global explosion in real time. Phones were buzzing incessantly, with calls and texts from everyone from fellow musicians and tech CEOs to confused family members. Snoop, ever the cool conductor in the eye of the storm, just leaned back, took a long drag from his blunt, and watched the numbers climb with a satisfied smile. "Told you we made a problem," he murmured to Elon. Elon, by contrast, was glued to the screen, his face illuminated by the rapidly refreshing analytics. He looked like he was watching a successful rocket launch, tracking the telemetry of a cultural payload reaching its orbit. He wasn't just seeing view counts. He was seeing charts showing engagement, global reach, and demographic data. "The sentiment is 98.7% positive," he announced to the room, a tremor of disbelief in his voice. "This is statistically improbable." Snoop just laughed. "Ain't no math for a good vibe, nephew." The song was everywhere. It topped the trending charts on every single social media platform in over 100 countries. Radio stations, desperate to be part of the moment, ripped the audio from YouTube and put it into immediate, heavy rotation. News channels broke into their regular programming to discuss the collaboration. The video was analyzed and dissected, with viewers praising its authenticity and the undeniable chemistry between the two unlikely friends. The lo-fi, unpolished nature of the video was hailed as a stroke of genius. The impact went beyond mere metrics. In schools across the country, science teachers played the song in their classrooms to get students excited about space exploration. Kids who had never given a thought to Mars were suddenly downloading the track and asking questions about Phobos and Deimos. The song did exactly what Elon had hoped it would. It democratized the dream of space, wrapping it in an irresistible beat and delivering it to a massive, diverse audience that the space industry had never been able to reach. The obstacles they had overcome, the cultural gap, the creative friction, the leaked snippet, now seemed like essential ingredients in their success story. The narrative wasn't just about a song, it was about the power of collaboration. It was a story of two masters from different universes finding common ground and creating something new. This message of unity and unexpected friendship resonated deeply in a polarized world, giving the project an emotional weight that a simple marketing stunt could never achieve. As evening fell, the Los Angeles sky turned a brilliant shade of orange and purple, a Marsified sunset. Elon and Snoop stepped outside the studio for some fresh air, leaving the celebratory noise behind them. They stood on the quiet street, the distant sounds of the city providing a soft soundtrack. They weren't looking at their phones anymore. They were just two people who had accomplished something extraordinary together. Elon's personal growth was complete. He had started the journey as a stressed-out executive, desperate for a new angle. Through the support and wisdom of Snoop, He had learned to cede control, to embrace creativity, and to communicate from the heart. He had not only launched a successful song, but had also rediscovered a part of himself that had been buried under years of corporate pressure and technical problem-solving. He had learned to find the music in the math. "You know," Elon said, breaking the comfortable silence. "The next Starship test is in 3 weeks. You should come to the launch. See the real thing." Snoop Dogg looked at the sky, a genuine sense of wonder in his eyes. "For shizzle, Rocket Man," he replied. "I gotta see what all my hype is about. Maybe we can film the sequel on location." They both shared a laugh, the sound of a genuine, hard-earned friendship. The collaboration didn't just break the internet, it built a bridge. It proved that innovation isn't confined to a laboratory, and that art isn't just for a gallery. It showed that the most powerful ideas often come from the most unexpected places. The song would eventually become an anthem for a new generation of dreamers, thinkers, and explorers, a permanent part of the cultural lexicon. Their success was a testament to the fact that authentic human connection can be the most powerful force for change. It reinforced the idea that to overcome the greatest obstacles, whether it's building a rocket to Mars or bridging a cultural divide, requires not just intelligence, but vulnerability, trust, and the support of others who see the world differently. The story of Marsified became a modern fable about the limitless possibilities that arise when you dare to collaborate. And that's how a late-night, caffeine-fueled idea became a global anthem, proving that with enough vision and a willingness to step into another person's world, you can truly make history. 2 icons, 1 mission, and a song that took us all a little closer to the stars. What did you think of their incredible journey and the final track? Drop your thoughts on this epic collaboration in the comments down below. And if you found this story as inspiring as we did, please hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more true-to-life stories you won't find anywhere else. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.